Hi everyone, we're going to show you how to add sponsored content into a list of content.
That's right. A lot of publishers these days have been reporting that their advertisers are asking for other ways to be associated with their brand, but not necessarily a banner ad or a listing. So one of the things that's popular right now is to have sponsored content. And typically that's an article that is about something topical that a sponsor, an appropriate one, let's say about kids and family or what have you, would be able to sponsor a piece that is that's featured on the site. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I have here is I created a section page. At the top I have a carousel with a story, and then on the right I have an ad, and then I have a classic list sprocket that's showing 5 of the latest stories automatically coming from this section by the issue date. So whenever a new story is published, they cascade down the page. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to add a sponsored piece of content. So to do that, I'm going to go over here, and you can see on the edit page I've got the carousel on the top and the ad on the right, and then I have this classic list that's showing the latest stories. So let's click on here. You can see how it's set up. It's called latest, and then I have it pulling all content that is limited to the current section, so anything from the section, and I'm showing 5 stories. And now what I want to do is add another one, which is a hand-selected piece of sponsored content.
Okay, so you can't really add it right within that sprocket, that sponsored content?
Well, you could, but typically when you're selling sponsored content, you're selling it for a certain duration. So let's say you're giving the advertiser a month where it's going to sit on the page. So if you add it to that sprocket, as you publish new stories, that will get pushed off the page. So this is how we do. We create another classic list, and it'll look similar to the list above, and it'll feel like a piece of embedded content. So we'll add a sprocket, and I already created it, so I'm going to pick it here. It's called Sponsored. Select, and now it's in the page. You can see I've hand selected this sponsored story. Usually you do it that way. You don't really automate it necessarily, but so I've hand selected that. And then if I hit save and we preview, we'll see that now it's part of the sprocket with all the current stories. So we have the 5 stories, and then here at the bottom is a sponsored piece. I titled the sprocket Sponsored so that you can see that and the user sees, even though it looks like a piece of content, it's actually a sponsored piece. That's the best practice normally with when you're dealing with sponsored content.
Okay, great. But what if I wanted that sponsored piece of content, let's say on position number 2, to really embed it within that list?
Yeah, and that's a comment that you want and fit in there, but to stay for a certain duration. So there's an easy way to do that, and I'll show you how. We have to go back to the section editor, and so we're going to have the latest story, and you said you wanted the sponsored piece in the second position,
Sure,
right?
for example.
Okay, let's just do it as a second. So you edit this, and this is automatically showing 5. We'll just change that to 1. So now this sprocket is showing the latest single piece of content from that section, and then it's followed by the classic list for sponsored. We hand selected 1.
Okay, so at this point it would only show 2, basically. 1 piece of content plus the sponsored content.
Yeah, in fact, if we preview it, you'll see right here. We have 2 now. That's the automated list, and then we have the sponsored piece. But now we want to get the other stories below it. So we go back to that section. We're going to add a second list sprocket that's automatically showing the stories to it. So we'll go there, and I made one ahead of time. So we pick latest, and then we'll go in there and I'll show you how to set it up. So I called it latest 02 so you know that it's connected to the one above it. There's latest and latest 02. So I've created another sprocket called latest 02. So you know it's connected, the one above is latest and then latest 02.
Okay.
And then as you go down the page, you see I set it up. It's limited to show only the stuff from the current section that we're in. And we are going to show it by the issue date, just like the previous one. And then it's going to show 4.
Right, because we added that sponsored piece of content.
Yeah, well, we have the first story, and then we want it to start to show 5 total, so it fills the same space. And then I hit save. I save the section. Now, if we go to live preview, we've got the first story followed by the other stories, and then we have this fixed sponsored piece in between.
Okay, yeah, that's nice and dandy, but how about that first one repeating right there? That doesn't look too good. We want to get rid of that.
That's a problem, isn't it? All right, that is easy to fix, and I'll show you how to do it right now. So each sprocket can have something called an offset. And what that means is you're telling it to start at a certain point. You're going to skip the first story. We're going to offset by 1. And then it'll start with the second story. So you never have these duplicates. So we go back to the section editor. We go down to the latest 02 sprocket that we just created. We're going to go down here to the bottom where you have this offset field. and we're going to change that to 1. Because we want to skip the first story, we're going to set the offset to 1. So if you wanted to start on the 3rd, let's say, you would give the offset 2.
Okay.
Then we hit save. And then, of course, we always want to save this section again. And then if you click on Live Preview, now you can see the flow of stories continues around the fixed sponsored piece. So you have your 5 stories, and then as you're adding new content, those will cycle through, and the sponsored piece will stay in that fixed position until you choose to remove it.
Okay, wonderful. And it looks just like one simple list,
Yeah.
but it's actually made up of 3 different
That's
list
right.
sprockets.
Yeah, so to the user, it looks like it's embedded in the list of content, but we assembled it together using 3 sprockets and using this concept of an offset. That's all you have to do.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.